Welcome back to the Digital Health and Wearables series. Today I have another magnificent episode guest leader for you. But before I go ahead, let me remind you to subscribe to the channel and also check all the previous content and share with your communities in healthcare. Also, let me acknowledge our partners, the series partner Fujifilm Healthcare and the industry partner Isaac Ken. And today it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to Jason Grant. Is a lived experience researcher and practitioner at Camden and Islington NHS Foundation Trust. Jason, how are you?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Thanks for having me today. Lovely to see you today. Yeah, hopefully you have a good conversation.
Yeah, brilliant. Jason, thanks for accepting the invite. I really want to have you on the channel because you bring something different from a researching perspective and everything. But today the topic is mental health research and community practice. And the first question that I have for you is tell us about some research projects that you have been working on, please.
Yeah, sure. So I was involved in a research project at the University of Manchester, and we were doing a study on inequalities in severe mental illness. So it was a large-scale qualitative study, £5 million funded by Lankelly Chase. And we was a collaborative centre. So most of the researchers were based at Manchester, but we had a few at Queen Mary and a couple at Oxford as well. And what we were looking at really is we're trying to understand why is it that people that experience severe mental health problems, why they were not experiencing positive outcomes in terms of recovery, going back to work, going into education, having good quality family life. And we really wanted to try and understand what was going wrong, I would say. It was quite a heartbreaking study. So we were interviewing people mainly across the north of England, so Manchester, Birmingham, Leeds as well, and it was heartbreaking some of the stories that we were uncovering. But I think what we've tried to do really is just to try and demonstrate to commissioners and to kind of system leaders of what the scale of the problem is and what they need to do in terms of investing in community mental health services to try and improve things for people. Really.
Yeah, sure, Jason. Very important subject. I mean, mental health is a global problem, and it's very important to raise that awareness to be better funded and create services. Because one of the things, and you are working in a field that we have experienced, especially in UK, I'm sure around the world, but the governments are actually cutting on services on really important things because there is no funding. Is a bit of a catch 22. But thank you for bringing that awareness to us. Moving on to the second question. Tell us about the work that you are involved within the community.
Yeah, sure. So, as you mentioned in my kind of title, I work for Camden and Islington NHS Foundation Trust. So, I currently work in a community mental health team based in Islington. So, I cover mainly the north of the borough. Islington is a very diverse place in North London. So, if your kind of listeners and viewers are not really familiar, we have our main football team's Arsenal. So I don't know if there's any Arsenal supporters around, but we have two universities in Islington, so City University and London Metropolitan. You've got the London Business Design Centre, which has loads of conferences and exhibitions. You've got Upper Street, which is a very kind of popular, affluent area, but you've also got some really deprived council estates as well. So very diverse borough. In the community, we basically support people who are referred by their GPs, by their doctors, if they need any kind of additional support. And my particular role is that I'm a coach. So my role is to try and coach people to identify goals that they can achieve and try and work towards workable solutions. And it's quite enjoyable. I'm always out in the community. So right now I'm in a cafe, so I'm usually out and about. And it's just trying to get people to understand, I guess, what strengths they actually have. So it's not about seeing them as kind of like an illness. I prefer to see people as a whole person. Most of us have difficulties that we need some help with, but it's about trying to get them to understand what strengths they have and what they can do to try and help themselves. So I'm a big fan of that, really. I've been doing it for 6 months. Before this job, I was working in an early intervention service. So that's for people with first episode of psychosis. So that's a bit more severe. But in where I'm working in Islington now, we generally deal with a whole range of different mental health conditions, but mainly it's called primary care, so mainly from referrals from GPs rather than the more severe end, really.
Brilliant. So really hands-on. It's so important to kind of having support, but also raise the awareness around. I mean, mental health is now well spoken, but also I always feel that is very little done to it. So it's really important to have that kind of intervention and the support and the services, of course. Thank you so much for that, Jason. Moving on to the third and last question is tell us about digital innovations happening within your work, please.
Yeah, sure. So, I obviously where I work, we have a number of different digital software systems that we have to use and utilize. So that's pretty good. But the thing I want to talk about actually is another kind of project I'm involved in as an advisor. So it's a project based at the University of Birmingham, and what they're trying to do is they're trying to create a digital tracker that can track people's symptoms based on kind of self-reported information. And the idea is that the system tracker will alert clinicians to know whether somebody needs some additional support and help, really. So it's a really large scale, it's going to be a large scale kind of project they want to roll out within early intervention services. And it's to do with things like monitoring sleep, monitoring people's medication adherence, monitoring physical health, so whether people are exercising enough, monitoring their food intake as well. So there's a number of kind of different measurements they want to track, and the idea is that it will make it a bit more efficient for clinicians to kind of know where to put their time, I guess. So instead of, for example, meeting somebody once a month for a monthly appointment, actually, if somebody needs some targeted support, on a Tuesday, we can get that support to them rather than wait for the month to reoccur. So I think there's some wonderful things happening in the digital space. Another example I want to kind of share quickly, really, is that I was on a call yesterday, and actually there's a colleague working in the NHS. There's actually working with the UK Space Agency. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to use the kind of technologies that they use in the space industry to transfer that into healthcare, and whether or not we can kind of utilize some of those benefits. So yeah, it's a very exciting space. If I'm honest, I'm not really that well versed in the digital technology, so I'm kind of just touching the surface. But I think what I'm noticing is that when you do have a really good system, it does make clinical work much more effective, I would say. So yeah.
Brilliant. Jason, thank you so much for mentioning that. Certainly, I'm a fan of wearables and self tracking, and
Mm,
certainly these things are really important because self monitoring, remote patient monitoring, all these things are happening. And as you mentioned, giving a personalized intervention on time, an early intervention, these things are really important. And now they are kind of maturing in the marketplace with digital health and digital innovation. So thank you so much for mentioning that. Jason, we come to the end of the episode. Thank you so much for your expertise and bringing these amazing insights. I finish all my episodes in a peculiar way. It's not a question as such. It's called
mm.
1 minute of fame. So you can talk about anything, personal achievements, professional life, shout out to family, startups, company, NHS, anything whatsoever. Over to you to round up. 1 minute
Okay.
of fame.
Yes, I think the big thing for me really is about finding joy in life. So obviously we're all overworked. We're all under a lot of pressure at the moment. And the thing that really brings me joy is dancing, right? So I do something called modern jive dancing, where the music goes on. We learn 3 moves in the night time, and then we have about an hour and a half to freestyle. So I was dancing last night on a Thursday evening, is my regular class night, and it brings me so much joy just to be around people, to move into music and dancing. And I'd totally recommend, even if you think you've got 2 left feet or you feel like dance is not for you, I'd totally recommend you to go out there and just find a dance class. It doesn't have to be modern jive, it could be salsa, it could be any other sort of dancing, but just go out there and experience the joy of it, really. So that's my recommendation, I would say.
Oh, brilliant. Jason, what a way to finish. Certainly, we all need something, and especially after the 2 years of the pandemic, we in
Exactly.
extra need, of social interaction, the feel
Mm,
good factor. And
mm,
of course, it goes with mental health and spiritual well being and even physical well-being. So all these things are tied up. You know that better than me, Jason. Thank you so much. Nice to see you. We feel like we know each other for quite some time.
Yeah.
Nice to see you. Thank you for coming on the program, and yeah, carry on the good work. And thank you so much for these amazing insights.
No worries. Thank you for the opportunity. Lovely
Thank
conversation.
you. Thank you,
All right,
Jason. I'm
cheers.
going to round up now. To our viewers and listeners, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Also, I'm going to post Jason's contact in here. Connect with him on LinkedIn. Ask him about his amazing work. And lastly, let me acknowledge our partners, the series partner, Fujifilm Healthcare, and our industry partner, Isaac Care. And I'll see you all next week.